this hybrid meeting. Some board members and staff should be visible on your video. Board members, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking, and also do not use the WebEx chat function. The virtual and in-person portions of this meeting will have public comments, both for liquor licenses, ordinances, and general public comments. If necessary, staff is available to help you prepare or confirm and attempt to resolve any technical issues. We appreciate your patience with this virtual format. As with all our meetings, we hope to create a friendly and respectful atmosphere for public dialogue. I call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Monday, March 15th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Romero, would you take roll, please?
Here.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Here.
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Trustee Romanello,
Here.
Trustee Unruh,
She texted me earlier and said that she might have troubles getting on tonight because she was in an area that might not have coverage.
okay, noted absent. Trustee Clark,
Likewise, she texted me that she was on the road trying to get back.
Okay.
noted absent.
Before us, we have an agenda. We have several modifications. I-25 South Gap update has been postponed. Mr. Foreman, did they give a tentative date in the future?
They think they can be at the next meeting.
Next meeting?
Yes, sir.
And we would also like to modify removing the home rule presentation for a future meeting. Is there any other modifications? Okay, if there are none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
I will. Mayor and Board of Trustees, tonight I present a liquor license approval on behalf of Hotsy Totsy Salon, a Colorado licensed liquor. Yeah. You're welcome to the table, yes. I apologize. I got last minute notice for this hearing, so bear with me. Background on Hotsy Totsy Salon is the Colorado liquor license application for a lodging and entertainment liquor license that has been filed with the town clerk's office. Based on the information contained in Exhibit A through D that will be entered into the record for the hearing, the town clerk's office presents the following initial findings. The application was filed on February 9th, 2021. The notice of the public hearing on this matter was published in the Tri-Lakes Tribune on March 3rd, 2021, and posted in a conspicuous manner on the premise on March 4th, 2021. There has not been within 2 years preceding the date of application a denial of an application by either the state of Colorado or liquor license authority for the town of Monument for the same class license at the same location or within 500 feet of the same location. because the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood and the desires of the inhabitants were satisfied by the existing outlets. From the evidence submitted, the applicant is entitled to possession of the premises where the applicant proposes to exercise the license being applied for. The selling of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises in the manner proposed in the application is not in violation of the Town of Monument Municipal Code or other applicable laws, rules, or regulations of the Town of Monument, County of El Paso County, or State of Colorado. The building where the applicant proposes to exercise the privilege of alcohol beverages for consumption on the premises is not within 500 feet from a public school or the principal campus of any college, university, or seminary. All officers, directors, general partners, and managing members with ownership of 10% or more in the applicant and the registered manager have submitted individual history records and fingerprints for the conduct of background checks as required. An inspection of the premises will be conducted prior to the issuance of a license to confirm the diagram submitted is accurate. The issuance of the local license is prohibited prior to the receipt of the license issued by the state licensing authority. I move to approve the issuance of lodging and entertainment liquor license to Hotsy Totsy Salon located at 1495 Cipriano Loop, number 120, based on the hearing findings. Or I move to deny the application for lodging and entertainment liquor license for Hotsy Totsy Salon for the following reasons. Tonight, I have Mr. John and Jessica Reyes here, owners of Hotsy Totsy, if you have any questions or concerns.
Just curious, are you guys in the new building there, or are you like in the Jasmine Garden Strip?
We are right behind Jasmine Garden Strip. That's correct.
And this is, you're going to be selling alcohol, or is this going to be to allow people to BYO, or how is this going to work?
Yes, sir. So our customers will wind up having liquor presented to them for free while they're having their services. We also will have community events and networking events where we'll be able to sell liquor, but for the primary purposes of having them have a complimentary drink while they're there. Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we have, in the design, we have a wall that separates the reception area from the service area. As they come in from that wall, liquor does not pass through that wall. Also, the stylist that's with them will stay with them the whole time. As you enter in the salon, the place where the liquor is being held is in the far corner of the salon, where only stylists are authorized. Before presenting any type of alcohol, we'll be checking IDs, and then the stylist again will be with them the whole time, and there will be no liquor that will pass that wall past the reception area.
What is the general demographic of your clientele?
Between 32 and 48 years old is our demographic.
And is this the first establishment like this, or do you have other businesses like this?
No, sir. We opened a remote location in 2018 in Coral Springs, and then my wife and I decided to find a location we wanted to raise the kids. So no better choice than Monument, Colorado. So we moved the location 2019 construction, and then physically opened July of last year, and in that particular location. So one location in Monument, Colorado.
Okay. Other questions from the board?
Mayor Wilson, I do have a question. In regards to the community events mentioned, what are some examples of other events that you might be holding at your establishment?
Sure. So we don't have anything designated at this time. However, we would like to be a center of the community where we can have networking for business networking events. Tri-Lakes BNI meetings being held. We'd like to have Tri-Lakes BNI meetings being held there. So little small functions, large. We have a decent sized salon, so a large portion of the salon is opened up so we can put chairs and have small meetings there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak for or against this? Ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. I came to represent, is this working? I came to represent Tri-Lakes BNI. I'm the president, and I can attest that they run a very quality business, and joined the BNI chapter to get involved in the community before they even opened the salon. They opened the salon during the very difficult lockdown time, and they've done very well. They're increasing their number of stylists and things like that. So I just think it's a very big asset to your community.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of this liquor license request and open it up for any further comments or questions from the Board of Trustees. If there are no further questions or comments, we'll look for a motion.
Is there a number for it, or an ordinance, or what?
No.
Okay. I move to approve the liquor license application for new lodging and entertainment for Hotsy Totsy Salon at 1495 Cipriani Loop, number 120.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we move on this motion, Ms. Romero, did you get Mayor Pro Tem Elliott's vote last? Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Will you please take roll?
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Elliott.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
No problem.
Sorry.
That motion passes 5-0. Mr. and Ms. Reyes, good luck with your business, and we look forward to having you in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 082021, ordinance approving annexation known as Native Sun Construction. Mr. Manning.
Mayor, Mr. Manning cannot get on tonight. He's having difficulties, so instead of him, we're going to have Debbie Flynn make this presentation.
Okay, Ms. Flynn, please go ahead.
Yes, just give me one moment. I am bringing the presentation up right now.
And while she's doing that, to let you know, Mayor and Board, Erica is replacing Laura tonight, and we did have to tell her that at last minute. As you know, a lot of flights were canceled, and we had Madeline and Laura out of state, and both of them flights got canceled, and so they're coming in either late tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
Oop. Oh, thank you, Drew, for putting that up. I couldn't share my screen. Should I just tell you next when I have to go next?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, next slide. This is the annexation and zoning of native sun construction property, Ordinance 08-2021. Next slide. The property is off of Woodcarver Road, off of the Santa Fe Trail. Next slide. It is 10.69 acres for the annexation and zoning. 2 resolutions were already passed by the Board of Trustees establishing annexation eligibility. The board is considering an ordinance approving the annexation and zoning. It's a recommendation for 4 from the Planning Commission and the annexation agreement accompanying this ordinance. This proposal includes plan development zoning and a plan development sketch plan. Next slide. Phase 1 includes about 5 acres outside the storage construction materials center, what you can see on your screen right now. Phase 2 includes about 2.5 acres of office for the construction of business southeast portion, which is in the orange area. And phase 3 includes 3 or 4 single family residents, which is in the yellow area. And the owners would like to live on this property in the future. Next slide. The project summary is to be zone plan development and is intended to be built in 3 phases. The access to this site is via an unplatted road known as Woodcarver Road, a portion of which is owned by the applicant and is being annexed. If approved, the next step will be the presentation of the PD site plans, at which that time the details of the development will be considered. Access via Woodcarver Road and the status, public right-of-way, or the private road, and in the improvement and maintenance responsibility, it's being handled through an agreement between the adjacent owners, users, and the town and detailed in a development agreement. There is also an IGA with the county in preparation to give to the town shortly for the town to eventually annex this road to be a town road and for the town to maintain this road. The annexation agreement specifies that the town service responsibilities, which are limited to the police protection. Next slide. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the annexation, plan development zoning, and plan development sketch plan of the Native Sun construction property based on the staff report findings that the proposed development complies with all standards and criteria for approval. And next, Peter Patton will be presenting his portion of tonight's presentation. Oh, I believe Larry is online if he has anything else to add.
I finally got into the meeting. Did you just present, Debbie?
Yes, I just finished your presentation.
Okay, I think that's a good start. Mr. Patton, who represents the applicant, I believe is there and has a presentation as well. And it would be good for him to do that before we move on. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome, Larry.
Good evening. Peter Patton with Patton Associates. I've been working with Native Sun Construction for almost a year now on this, and we do have a short PowerPoint presentation, but to kick us off, I'd like to introduce Ernest Jessup, who is one of the owners of Native Sun Construction, for just a few introductory remarks.
Hello, everyone, and I'm glad to be here today to try to get this pushed through. We've been really looking forward to this project of getting our office and a shop facility located here in the town. We've been leaning hard on Peter to get this work done, and Jane, Ephraim, and I have been working heavy on it, and we just brought Fred in as he's one of our other key employees to help push this project along. But we want the town to know that we're really looking forward to this, and we want to be a good neighbor, to have a project that builds up the property of the town and be a citizen of your town that will be something that you guys would be glad for us to be here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ernest. Drew, go ahead. The first slide. So Jane Fredman is also here. She is our land use attorney, and she's here to answer questions about the agreements if necessary. So this is the property. Do you have a remote with a laser that I can point to? Okay. Doesn't work on any of these? Okay. So this is I'll just look at this one. This is the property outlined in yellow. It's triangular shaped with the northerly flag for Woodcarver Road. It's somewhat of a unique site in that the Woodcarver Road, which you probably know has been there for probably 40 years, is literally on the property and is a private road. NAVSIS office building, as you can see on the lower right, they have been utilizing that road for decades now. To the north and east is the new Falcon Commerce Center, which you're familiar with, and directly to the north of the property is the new UPS facility. So you can see Baptist Road up there. And next slide. This is just the existing conditions showing the topo on the site, and to the lower left is the railroad tracks. You can see most of the site is flat. The center part and the eastern part are relatively flat. There is a drainage through the middle that has some wetlands associated with it that we will protect. And then on the upper left part of the site, there is a hill there with some trees. Next slide. So this is probably the most important slide because it shows that this property is part of your adopted annexation plan that's part of the comprehensive plan. So you can see the triangular site there is in the shaded area, so it's designated for annexation within your comprehensive plan. Next slide. The current boundary is the blue, and the proposed boundary is the red. Pretty simple. Next slide. So in terms of land use, it couldn't fit better within the land use pattern of the area. The light industrial is, of course, the tan, and that's the Falcon Commerce Center that's adjacent to us and to the north of us as well with the Pioneer Sand and Gravel. So the land use for the Native Sun site is light industrial, which is what we are proposing. So it fits in extremely well with your land use pattern, with your land use map. Next slide. And so this just shows the kind of the surrounding area. There is some rural residential area to the west that's in the county. Again, the site is the small triangular just to the on the lower graphic there, just showing that it fits really well with the Falcon Commerce Center. Next. This is our PD sketch plan we have proposed, and I think that's part of the ordinance this evening, is to designate the site for planned development zoning. Our sketch plan indicates the central part of the site as the construction yard, which is the priority for Native Sun construction to get going as soon as we can. And then the next phase would be an office building that's to the east there, adjacent to the existing NAVSIS office building. And then we did designate that hill area as a possible future area for residential lots. Next slide. So you have already found that this project proposal meets the Colorado state statutes for annexations at your previous public hearing. So that's kind of a check off the list. Next. We've submitted, as Debbie mentioned, the annexation agreement and the development agreement. Those have been reviewed, of course, by staff and Andrew Ritchie, and we did make some changes in the last week or so based upon his comments. The two most important things within these two agreements are really, A, that Woodcarver Road is proposed to remain as a private road, at least through phase 1 and possibly through phase 2, but we expect that phase 2 with the office building, that at that point, the Woodcarver Road status would be revisited through a traffic study, and then we would go from there. And secondly, we have already agreed and we've been working very closely with Tom Blanc with Falcon Commerce Center to accommodate on the lower graphic there, Squadron Drive, which is under construction already. They needed to do an intersection with Woodcarver Road. And so that yellow shaded area is 200 feet, the northerly 200 feet of Woodcarver Road on the Native Son property. And Native Son has agreed to dedicate that to the town of Monument to facilitate that Squadron Drive intersection. That's obviously all part of these agreements. So there's an annexation agreement, two-way between Native Son and the town, of course, and then there's a development agreement that's a three-way agreement that includes Falcon Commerce Center. Next. In terms of utilities, the first phase, we will do an on-site well, and for wastewater, we will go ahead and connect to that line that is on the Falcon Commerce Center property. And that is owned by Tri-Lakes Metro. So they have agreed to allow us to connect into that wastewater line. And then phase two, when the office building comes online, we anticipate connecting into the Forest Lakes Metro future line if they build it and if they allow us to connect. Next. So the result of the annexation, and we've done the fiscal impact report, we've done the annexation impact report, is that the town will have no obligation for providing municipal services to the property, with the exception of police and municipal court. Tri-Lakes Fire Protection has agreed to provide their services, and the fiscal impact report actually found a net overall fiscal benefit to the town. Next. So in conclusion, the annexation and zoning complies with the Colorado state statutes, the town's comprehensive plan, and the other applicable town regulations. We respectfully request approval from the board for the annexation and the zoning this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the planning department or the applicant?
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, you said you're going to maintain the road. So, or that road is your private road. So, let me make sure I understand that you will be responsible for maintaining that. I understand you're a construction business, so I assume there are going to be heavy trucks going there. So if there are potholes and things like that, will that be addressed by you and you'll take the responsibility for those?
That's correct. I have an agreement. Emphasis. Share that responsibility.
Okay.
Mayor Wilson, I couldn't hear that response.
So yes, we are taking on the responsibility to maintain the road.
Thank you.
And if down the road gets really bad, because is that road also being used? I think Woodcarver Road goes on and there's some other.
That's what I meant by, we have an agreement with NAFSIS,
Okay.
that office complex beyond us. So between us, then we'll have a shared maintenance program. And then to make sure that it's held up to a standard that's adequate for both of us.
Okay. Very good.
But the road that travels, what about those residential sites south? So you and NAPSIS maintain Woodcarver. Is that the only way that residents to the south get to their properties?
All the way from Pioneer's Yard onto our property is part of our private road. And so, yes, we will maintain it from that intersection where, I don't remember the name of that street, Squadron, all the way to Naphthys. And there are some private residents, it's very minimal traffic that is down in there, but they pretty well get to travel on our road. So I guess that's something that we maintain it for our use and they are a benefit to it.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking is that the road they use to get to their residence?
It is.
Okay. And Mr. Foreman, is there any sort of, or Mr. Ricci, is there any sort of liability with annexing into this town, saying it's a town road, and then something happens and something happens with maintenance or an issue with the road and it's now the town's road, but we're saying it's not our issue?
I'll let Mr. Ritchie answer that question, but I do have a comment before that. We do have a code enforcement, and we've talked to them and said that if anything does happen, such as you're talking about, if they don't maintain the road in a proper manner, then we will send code enforcement out there, just like we did at Walmart and places like that.
Okay.
As far as liability goes, the town does have sovereign immunity. It has sovereign immunity for its own roads. This would continue to be private property, and the legal situation for who would have an issue here, in my opinion, doesn't change. So if it's on a private road and someone else is using it, the town doesn't have anything to do with that.
Okay. Well, I think that clarifies. Thanks for putting that way. It is being annexed into the town, but it's still a private road.
Exactly. We have several properties like that now. We have a couple of
Right.
condominiums that have private roads that we don't maintain.
Okay.
But we make sure that they maintain them.
Okay. Excellent.
All right.
Other questions from the board?
I do have a question. So for clarification then, as far as snow plowing is concerned, that is not the responsibility of the town?
Why would that question come up today?
We would sure like it to be, but that's correct. We are sharing the same agreement with Naphthys to
Thank you.
handle the snow plowing.
What's the road condition today? Is it able to support the type of equipment that your company is going to be moving back and forth across it? Or is there need to be reinforcements done beforehand?
The road is in fair condition. There's no doubt that we're going to be bringing a little bit of heavy traffic on it. For our portion of that, we're saying anytime there's potholing and maintenance needed, this is what we do. We're in construction. We'll jump on those repairs and maintain the road that's in as good a shape as it is now or better. So it's a decent road as it is. It'll serve us very adequate. It'll continue to serve Naphthys adequate. So I think all the players involved are happy with it.
And the access, which I'm assuming getting on and off the freeway at Baptist.
We're going to be the least of the problems there.
That's my point. We already have this kind of traffic that can support the weight on the roads that we already maintain.
Right on Baptist Road, and we're reconstructing Woodcarver. Actually, Falcon Commerce Center will be reconstructing the intersection at Woodcarver and Baptist Road. So we'll be able to maintain. They're doing this because of UPS.
Well, and you have already Pioneer is doing a lot more than we'll be doing there.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Additional questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so at this time I'll open it up for the public hearing portion. Do we have anybody that would like to speak for or against this ordinance? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online? Okay. Well, we will leave the public hearing portion open momentarily and bring it back to the board for further discussion, or have further discussion with the board.
What type of construction material will you be using in your business?
So we do concrete work and civil construction. So we'll have some construction equipment that at times will park in that yard. And
Okay.
our concrete forming materials and things like that will have some racking systems to store like rebar and form plywood and things like that. So it'll be organized and in a fashion that it's not a big eyesore. We have a plan to deal with it, but it is a construction yard.
Right. So since you're doing it initially starting out with outside construction, I take it you won't be doing any sheetrock or stuff like that.
No, we're
outside.
not, we're a civil contractor. So we
Okay.
do anything that goes to the curb and gutter. We pretty much stay in the street.
Okay. Thank you.
A question for Ms. Flynn. And it sounded like when you mentioned it in your presentation that the development agreement was already in place.
No, it's not. It's in place, but it's not signed yet. The development agreement with the tri-party development agreement, and Larry's online too, and he could go in further detail regarding that.
I think the exact status at this time is best represented by Mr. Patton and the applicants. They put together that agreement. They probably know the status with Mr. Blanc. So Peter, if you can address that, that'd be great. Thank you.
So Jane, help me out if I misspeak, but essentially, with regard to the development agreement, Mr. Blanc with Falcon Commerce Center has agreed to the terms of the development agreement. Nobody has signed anything at this point, but he has agreed via our communications, and we've passed that along to staff, his
blessing.
agreement.
Yeah, it's in final review right now. So as soon as it gets to that final stage, everybody's signed it, we'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I might add that the development agreement is an integral part of the annexation agreement. And if the development agreement is not consummated, then the annexation agreement will not be consummated.
Okay, so it's already a prerequisite. Mr. Foreman, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online wanting to speak for or against this? Okay. At this time, I'll close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back to the board for a further discussion or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 08-2021, an ordinance approving the annexation of property known as Native Sun Construction Annexation.
Second.
Mr. Merrow, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes,
Trustee Stevens.
Yes.
that motion passes 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Ordinance number 12-2021, an ordinance vacating right of way. Mr. Ricci.
Thank you, Mayor. If you all remember back to Ordinance 14-2020, the town agreed to sell the unvacated portion of Lincoln Avenue south of Bethesda Senior Living Center to the owner of Bethesda Senior Living Center in order for that company to be able to expand its parking there at Bethesda. There was no desire to put in the road that would connect Adams Street, which is the road that runs behind Bethesda, to the west, I should say, of Bethesda Senior Living Center. And so without a need for the road, the town agreed to sell the roadbed portion of land to Bethesda Senior Living Center. Because you can't just sell a road, what happened was the company that owns Bethesda had the area surveyed and plotted so that we can now transfer them a plotted piece of land. But in order to transfer that plotted piece of land, we have to vacate the street underneath it. So we had to first agree to sell it and then next get it plotted. And now we vacate the street and continue the deal with 30 days, or as soon as the ordinance is complete, we'll sell that portion of land to Bethesda.
So we don't have a appraised value yet or any of that. This is required before that.
You all agreed in Ordinance 14/2020 to both sell it and the price. I believe the sale price was about $15,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Can you point this out in the present? Where is this road?
So this road headed out. If you're on Beacon Light and you're headed out from Town Hall, you're going to drive south on Beacon Light until it becomes Old Denver, that after you pass 2nd Street. Bethesda Senior Living Center is on your right, and just south of their retention pond is this road that has never been constructed and will not be used. And so it's about 1/4 of an acre that they requested us the town to sell to them in order for them to build parking. So it's approximately 30 by 110 feet, just south of Bethesda Senior Living Center.
About a block south of Arlene's.
To Bethesda Senior Living is just north. The main entrance to Bethesda Senior Living is just north of this parcel. So they have their roundabout and their parking, and then their retention pond, and then this area that has not been in any way demarcated out is the area of Lincoln Avenue that has not been vacated yet. The portion west of this land has been vacated at the request, I believe, of the school district.
So this doesn't really show up as a road, it's just dirt.
It looks like everything else. It's a grassy field.
Okay.
It was to be a road one time way long ago, and it's never going to be a road.
So as I understand it, the goal was to, I'm sorry, Mike just looked at the numbers. We agreed to sell it for $3,750, which was the amount of money that the auditor said it was worth. I'm sorry, the assessor said it was worth. So the initial plan for Lincoln Street was to bring the cul-de-sac behind Bethesda Senior Living to the west down and connect it to Lincoln. But with the way that the land was developed, that never occurred. And so this road was never needed.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Questions from the board? This is a public hearing item, so we'll open it up for public comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak for or against this item? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online? Okay. At this point, we will close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the board for a further discussion or a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 12/2021, an ordinance vacating rights of way to the town of Monument.
We have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
and Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. That takes us to resolution 21/2021. Resolution approving the lease of 4 police vehicles. Mr. Chief Hemingway.
Good evening, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Mayor Elliott and board members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. So in fiscal year 2021 budget workshop, 265,000 was approved for a 5-year lease under resolution 20-2021. This lease is to be divided over 5 years, not to exceed $265,000 for total payments, and not to exceed $56,391 per year. At the end of this 5-year lease, the vehicles will be bought out by the town for a $1 buyout. These vehicles will be essentially retrofitted to include the lights, sirens, and all equipment associated with a emergency response vehicle based on national accredited standards. These vehicles were selected, the actual vehicle, because there's a couple components to this. The vehicle itself was selected under the state bid, which are 3 Tahoes and 1 special operations vehicle, which oversees our training and our criminal investigations. And then the retrofitting, such as the lighting, the cages, things of that nature were used from a piggyback bid from El Paso County Sheriffs based on previous responsiveness of the companies to get out and fix the equipment, based on price and based on location, with the intent that we don't have to take a vehicle to Denver anytime it breaks or wait several days for a technician. And then when you get to the financing, that was selected based on a competitive bidding, and also for the financial institutions to provide the financing requirements consistent with what we needed in the 2021 budget. And the packet and the bidding and all the terms contained in the lease were approved by Mr. Ritchie, Town Manager Foreman, and Finance for approval. And that's all I got, and I'm here to hopefully answer any questions that you guys may or may not have.
What is the difference between the 3 vehicles and the special operations vehicles other than usage?
Basically, Mayor, it's 3 Tahoes with 4-wheel drive capacity, and then the special ops vehicle, it will be an unmarked vehicle, so we can use it for surveillance. I really don't want to divulge, unless you require me to, the specific type of vehicle, but it will be more of a plain unmarked vehicle that can be used both for emergency responses and for, protracted investigations that would require surveillance or some type of covert operation.
Nope. I was just looking for any extremely different equipment or anything, and it doesn't sound like it has that.
Just the exterior lighting and the striping and the patches and the insignias for making a monument police car. The special ops wouldn't have that.
Okay. Questions from the board?
So the money for this in 2021 has already been allocated, or is this an addition? Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, if there's no additional questions, I'll look for a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 21-2021, a resolution approving the lease for 4 police vehicles for the town of Monument.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
That resolution passes 5-0. Resolution number 22-2021, a resolution awarding contract to Lytle Christensen for redeal of Well 3. Mr. Tharnish.
Good evening, Board. The resolution you have in front of you tonight is to perform a re-drill of well number 3. If you recall, last summer, well number 3 had a lot of issues, and we ended up pushing through some emergency funding to get it back in operation because it went out of service right at during our peak demand season. And part of that process was to do a video inspection and assess the current, the actual casing of the well. And what we discovered were there were large cracks that were occurring in the casing, which is indicative of at the end of its normal life. That well, and I can't remember the exact age, but it is one of our older wells. We did what we needed to do last summer to get it back operational, knowing that we would plan for a new well within 200 feet of the existing well to replace that. This project here will bring in a drilling contractor and re-drill that. I think in the end it's maybe a little over 100 feet to the slightly southwest of the current well, almost in front of where the Arlene's Beans is, but in a section of property that the town currently owns. So this project is a pretty standard well re-drill. One of the advantages to doing a re-drill like this, as opposed to a brand new well that would be everything new, is we're planning on reusing the pump and motor, since we replaced the pump and the motor last summer. So it should still be under good shape. We'll assess that when we pull it out. But this is the very next project in our COP bond funding that was scheduled to go into effect. And so we have our water consultant handle the bidding process. He followed the same procedures we used for well number 10 down by the headwaters of the lake. And so far that project has been very successful. We're expecting the same here. 3 bidders replied to the bid, same 3 bidders that bid the previous well. And the recommendation is to approve Lane Christensen to re-drill this well at a cost of $407,575. This project is budgeted at $1.2 million. So we're well under the project. There'll be a few more expenses of connecting piping, probably 100 to 150 feet. So costs will be pretty minimal. And we should have this thing back operational, we're hoping by early to mid-May. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
When do you see this project commencing?
This project should commence once we sign off on the contract. We normally give them about a week to ensure the bond documents and the insurance documents, and then we issue notice to proceed. Project itself should take, we say 3 to 4 weeks, but I've seen them go 5 or 6. So we're looking at starting in about 2 to 3 weeks, and should be done in the next by mid-May.
And mid-May is not quite into our peak season yet?
I'm sorry?
Mid-May is not in our peak season yet, correct?
No, it's starting up about then, but a lot depends on the weather. If we get a dry spell and people start turning on irrigation a few weeks earlier than they normally do, then our demand will go up. But we're hoping that by this time, though, that well 10 should be close to becoming operational too. And our preliminary results of well number 10 is it will produce 30 to 40 gallons a minute more than the current wells that are supplying that treatment plant down by the lake.
Okay. Questions from the board? Is there any reason why that pump would not be reusable since we just had it rebuilt? The motor?
The only thing I've seen over the years is sometimes if the water downhole is slightly corrosive, you may see some indications of that, but being that it's only less than a year old, I don't expect to see any issues with that.
Okay. There are no other questions from the board. We'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution 22-2021, a resolution awarding a contract to Lane Christensen to redrill and case a new water well at the current well 3 site.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Romero?
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LeKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
Thank
That
you,
takes
Board.
us to discussion items. Amendment to resolution number 07-2020, local disaster emergencies. Ms. Romero, Mr. Ricci, whichever one of you would like to start.
Thank you, Mayor. So just some little bit of background here. The Board of Trustees passed the emergency ordinance, declaring it an emergency 07-2020 on March 23rd, 2020. Declared a local disaster within the town of Monument, and the resolution authorized and directed the following actions, substantive actions. Of course, it made a disaster declaration in Section 1. It directed the activation of emergency plans in Section 2, permitted the furnishing of aid under applicable emergency plans, and granted the town manager the authority to direct staff to comply with the directives from the Pike Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management and modify those directives if required, and then gave the town manager additional spending authority and suspended in-person meetings of the Planning Commission and allowed remote meetings. There are a number of reasons why the town uses this emergency declaration continuing. Based upon that emergency declaration, the next resolution permitted remote attendance of trustees at board meetings, permitted use of electronic signatures, allowed us to receive CARES Act funding under Resolution 19-2020, distributed CARES Act funding to local businesses, and allowed us to request reimbursement of emergency expenses from Fema. Those are the major issues. It also has allowed us to apply for additional grants and funding. And I know that talking to Ms. Romero, those issues and applications are ongoing. So it has become a situation where an emergency declaration is a requirement for a number of grants, even ones that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have an emergency declaration required as part of it, but it has become one of the standard documents that is being requested for grants going forward. So the continuing use from what I've seen and how we're using this emergency declaration still is, of course, the remote attendance of meetings, both Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees, electronic signatures, mutual aid and assistance, and then participation in regional emergency management groups. That's a major issue where the emergency declaration gets us a seat at the table there, and the continuing application of grants. So our recommendation here is to continue the town's emergency declaration. If you would like, there are some sections, if you'd like to amend it, there are some sections in the resolution 2, 3, and 5 that could be amended if the trustees so desired. And that was mostly related to spending authority and actions that are already inherent in the town manager's authority when it comes to the Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management.
Questions from the board?
Oh, yeah. So a couple of these in the non-government world are standard operating procedure. So remote attendance is, work from home is a thing. that happened long before COVID. I see no reason why we need to have an emergency declaration for the town to be able to function with remote attendance for trustees, members of the town staff, as well as people who would like to participate that are residents in the community to the meetings. I use electronic signatures is way before COVID. I don't see why we need a declaration of an emergency to use tools like DocuSign. They get used all the time. And who's holding us hostage that we need to be, what governing agency is saying that in order for us to attend a emergency management meeting, number 4 specifically, that we have to have a declaration of our own emergency in order to participate in something that could benefit the community, whether we're in an emergency meeting or not, emergency status or not.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can address those each in order. The remote attendance for Board of Trustees and Planning Commission meetings, that is absolutely possible should the board pass and set up rules for the remote attendance of meetings that is not premised on an emergency. I will tell you that looking at Resolution 08-2020, it's simply stated because there is an emergency, we are allowing this remote attendance. So if you want to do that, you absolutely can, but you will need to formulate a non-emergency basis for doing so and create rules and the like.
So just since you're on that topic, is there something that is in the town rules that say any member cannot be remote? So it's explicitly denied?
Yes, this had to be specifically allowed by the town's resolution. Again, the Board of Trustees can absolutely pass a regular resolution or change ordinances and make that happen. And if you'd like, we can bring that to you.
Okay, thank you. No, you don't want to change that?
No. I think board members should be required to make town meetings, and if citizens want to speak at town meetings, they should come to town meetings. Now, I understand under COVID, we don't have that ability, but I think it would be poor representation for residents if there was board members that never had to appear in person or never had to, in a sense, directly interact with the community.
Mayor Wilson, can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So I agree. I mean, before COVID, we shouldn't have empty chairs at the dais and be on camera and everybody be remote. But I know that there have been times where, because of COVID, we've actually been able to have attendance and have a quorum while on a business trip because of the remote capabilities. So would anybody be willing to consider, while maybe we don't have, everybody be remote at every meeting, but perhaps we have a certain number of meetings per term where somebody can call in remotely on a business trip once we're all free to, walk about the cabin, and travel, and the travel picks up again?
I think, well, speaking for myself, I think that would be reasonable with some sort of stipulations of the number of meetings. But I would also wonder if would that just fall into our home rule charter moving forward?
It definitely could. I mean,
It absolutely could.
The charter committee could definitely change that rule to where you could have non-attendance and you could attend via the WebEx.
You could set all the rules as far as numbers of times that people are able to be remote, number of missed meetings that they're allowed to have. All of those issues are possible to address through home rule. The only concern here is that per the way that our rules are currently written, we had to, the remote attendance is predicated on a disaster emergency or an emergency declaration.
He answered that for me. It's just perfect. So I'm good on that one.
Okay.
Well, home rule's a ways away.
And like Mr. Ritchie said, you can make that change today without an emergency declaration. If you wanted to go, if say COVID ended tomorrow and you wanted to continue with WebEx, there is a cost, right, Drew, for this, for WebEx, for us to be able to have this. There's a cost for that.
That is correct.
Yep. So there's a cost for it. And so if you wanted to continue it post-COVID, you could do that as a board.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
Board of Trustees, if I may.
Go ahead.
As far as this declaration is concerned and what I use in my day-to-day responsibilities in emergency coordination, the whereas statements, the general disclosure on the first page is really what is required on behalf of any applications that I have that I've used as such for FEMA or CARES Act. It has required just a declaration, a general declaration for the town. However, those pieces in the top part that Andy was speaking specifically to, such as remote meetings, electronic signature, and so on and so forth, those can be amended or completely removed as you see fit. I hope that maybe gives you a little bit of clarity, but at this time, as long as we have the declaration in place, that should allow us to move forward with any type of funding opportunities. However, it has been unclear if that is required to have a seat at Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management. We fall under that category through El Paso County. However, we seek guidance from them in our day-to-day operations. But that hasn't been made specifically clear whether that is required or not. As long as we have the general declaration still intact, I believe we would be okay. So I hope that gives you some clarity.
My question would, being a part of the Office of Emergency Management, has that done anything for us? Because I know as board members, we hear nothing about it other than staff members go to meetings.
Right. So I would like to say at this time, it has been a great resource for myself and for the town, being that we don't have we've kind of just moved forward with our emergency management team. Obviously, our chief came with experience and was able to help us through this disaster. But other than that, we didn't have somebody identified full-time in emergency management with resources. In our FEMA application that I just submitted 2 weeks ago, they identified somebody from the state that basically held my hand through that process. It's like a 100-page application along with several other documents to submit. I don't know, without the proper training through FEMA, if we would have been able to successfully complete that application. We do have weekly meetings where they have given us several resources all the way to to this weekend emergency. Obviously, we set up a North End command, but we worked through Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management at the start of that. Obviously, I don't have experience in the past, but it has been helpful, and we have used them in several different capacities as far as resources for the town.
So what funding have we, outside of our original CARES Act, 550,000, what funding have we received from FEMA or additional CARES Act money?
So as of right now, our FEMA application is in the final stage of review, but I did submit all of our police department's reimbursable expenses. At first, they were only going to reimburse us 75%. However, they updated that to 100%. So we were able to capture 100% reimbursable expenditures through FEMA. As far as additional CARES Act, right now there was, I believe March 12th, there was another act that was passed where they're predicting additional funding coming down to local municipalities. I don't have enough information to speak on that right now, but from what I've been told is they're supposed to be sending more resources down to us that then again will be able to support local businesses and staff here at Town and Monument, such as we've had to honor employees with their, when somebody tests positive or becomes ill with COVID or experiences an exposure, we've had to put them on leave, obviously 10 days quarantine and so on and so forth. I believe we are going to be reimbursed the expenses for the employees who have been put on that time off. I'm sorry.
You believe we are. Let me get back to the question. What money other than that original CARES Act have we received over the year?
We haven't received anything yet. She's filed for it, and I think it's what, $36,000?
Correct.
Yeah, so we filed for FEMA funds of $36,000. We expect to be reimbursed for that within this calendar year.
And other than the FEMA 36,000, what other grants have we applied for using our emergency declaration?
None at this time.
We do, however, expect this next round of funding from the federal government to also require it.
It's called the American Rescue Plan Funds. I think I sent you a little bit of information about it this morning or this afternoon. I'm going to continue to send that to you. Like Erica said, it was just signed on Friday. We just got a request from the Gazette today to respond to some questions from them. So we're, me, Rosa, Erica, are all in the middle of trying to learn more about that and how that's going to affect us and how it's going to provide more funding, not only for the Town of Monument, but also for businesses in the Town of Monument.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we have applied for some grants using that disclosure and the COVID pandemic situation to make us more competitive in some of those grants. I believe we've heard back from one. It was a GoCo grant. And I believe we were denied that grant, but our grant summary was specific to COVID and social distancing. So I know we did use it in that application. And I can't think of the other one that we used. No, we did not. Yeah, so that was one more that I missed.
Okay. Is there further questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I understand the need for, having a emergency declaration in place for grants. But what does it obligate us to as far as in the emergency declaration? Do we have to comply with all of we've already set out a resolution that we've declared some of the comments of the governor to be unconstitutional. Are we obligated to comply with all, anything that the federal government or state government, decides to hand down? I don't have any trouble working with Pikes Peak Emergency Management Group because they're a good group and with issues like fire and other things like that, we definitely need to continue our relationship. I would hope that if we just, that this would not sever a relationship with them in the sense of it's just, working. I think there needs to be a, how shall I say, cooperative relationship there. But at the same time, I want to avoid the key word there is cooperative, not dictatorial. And I just want to make sure there's a distinction between the two.
So to date, there is, and Erica, please help me out on this one. CARES Act and FEMA have not required us to demonstrate any compliance with local or state directives and the like. It has just been, as far as I can tell, do you have an emergency declaration and please include it with your grant?
And if I may, I believe
he wanted to buy.
Chief can speak more specifically to Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management and kind of how we fall into that. And I believe he's online.
Chief, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just trying to turn on. Sorry about that. Mayor and Board again, and Council Member, Board Member LeKind, specific to question 3 that you had, and I think Trustee Stevens is also addressing a little bit of a concern. In certain situations, the sheriff will become the incident commander and take control, wildfires, things of that nature. So we will fall, I think, even if we were home rule, under that situation. I can tell you as far as the comment by Mr. Ritchie as far as having cooperation up there. We're going to have cooperation with or without this, this resolution. I will tell you though, to his point, last night I was speaking with the fire department, and when we were at our worst, the rest of the region was kind of improving. So we were kind of in an isolated northern command here. And the question I think I would have, where I could see some benefit, is if the county didn't see a need for a state of emergency because something was so isolated to like the town of Monument, and they didn't activate their EOC. My question for Mr. Ritchie would then become, will this resolution help us and maybe one or two fire districts or even a few police departments, if we had a local state of declaration of emergency, would that now help us get some FEMA funding? And I do not have that answer, but that would be a good piece of research in my opinion.
That is possible. Again, I think they are requiring, as far as grants, to get additional FEMA funding. And for this next round of aid from the federal government, we expect that it will be required to have some sort of declaration in place.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Yeah. Not per se to our individual situation or applying for this money. Obviously, it's going to benefit the town to get some grants and money than we're this. But just to make a comment that this is a completely great example of why big government money with big government control is a bad idea from get one. Our forefathers never had an intention for this. With big government money comes big government control, and an emergency resolution in perpetuity could just lead to constitutional violations. Like income tax. It's not how much income tax is good. It's just a bad idea. So I'll say that. And I'll also say that I agree that, local government should be locally accountable where people can come and see the representatives. And though in a home rule situation where people can have a hall pass here and there, having people being perpetually remotely is not what local government, in my opinion, is all about. Those are my comments.
Is there, outside of emergency declaration by us, the county, or any other entity, is there no Office of Emergency Management?
Not that I'm aware. Chief, are you aware?
Yeah, Mayor, I believe the state point of contact has a state Office of Emergency Management. I know that a lot of our funding goes up through that and it starts there coming down. Operationally, if you're asking operationally involved, how are they? I would think more in a fire situation than something we saw last night. So I truly couldn't answer that. But here in El Paso and Teller, we're represented by the larger Pikes Peak region only.
How does this differ any from our regular emergency preparedness with OEM versus just the partnerships we have with other entities for emergencies on a regular basis?
We have the ability to sign individual MOUs or IGAs to coordinate with specific resources. I know the fire department's talked about contracting dispatch for interoperability to maybe Douglas or El Paso at times. So you can break out individually. But when we look at this regional approach, they're in a transition too, sir. They went from city and county not being intermingled to the last few years commingling the two entities, the city and the county, to form one large entity. Now, I can tell you they're in the beginning stages of pre-planning for a lot of events. So we've done a lot of breakout planning and a lot of just pre-canned drills on the north end until we can get that widespread collaboration going. And I think a lot of COVID over the last year since I've been here, coupled with the fact they're new, has kind of inhibited some of what their probably long-term vision might be.
Okay. Another question or another point came to mind. Item 3, receive emergency funds under the CARES Act. The funds received were allotted per population, not per emergency order. So that CARES fund had nothing to do with our local emergency order, correct?
So it was allotted in that way, but as I understand it, the local emergency declaration was part of the paperwork that was provided for for that funding.
So declare an emergency or you can't have your own tax dollars back. We're holding you hostage.
I do not know whether or not we would have received our CARES Act money or not, based upon whether or not we had a local disaster declaration. But I will say that per Eric and I's discussion on this matter, it has become something that is included in a number of grants going forward. It's just part of, please tell us, do you have this or not, and or attach a copy.
But it doesn't say specifically that if you don't attach it because you don't have one, you're not eligible for the money.
It does not typically say that, but it is possible that we would be in a worse position because we don't have one. Again, it is one of the standard documents now being requested.
It sounds to me like that's probably an assumed prerequisite, not a stated, but an assumed prerequisite.
I would concur with that.
And
I would be curious, would you know, or without taking oodles of the town's time, I'd be curious if anybody got denied those because of not having one.
Well, we got denied the COGO with having one.
One other thing on home rule, because we talked about some issues that are, I'm not trying to go down a pig path, but because we talked about, for example, remote meetings and things like that. And we talked about Mr. Ritchie's presentation and about your comment about we're not close to that yet. I know that we had discussed, not in depth or any kind of severity or seriousness, when to do this, whether it's a 22 election or doing possibly a special election at the end of this year. If we did try to do a special election of some kind regarding a home rule in November, which is only 8 months away, that isn't a lot of time. So I'm just kind of wondering what our thought process is in that a little bit.
So if I could clarify just a little bit about that home rule process. So let's say you said, hey, I think we should do remote meetings and electronic signatures and some of these other issues and address them through home rule. That would not be effective at the earliest until after the election is certified in November of 2022. So your initial election here this November would be to call for a home rule commission and elect the members to that commission.
Draft the Constitution,
So to speak, yes. You'd be drafting the home rule charter, and then the charter may or may not have those issues within it. That is up to the charter commission.
Any other comments on the resolution declaring a local disaster? Hearing none, I would recommend board members, if they would like to see something moving forward with some sort of remote meeting option, please let me know or speak now. And also, I would like, is it possible for staff to give some sort of updates on OEM?
Yes, we can.
As far as what we're doing, we're hearing after a year that we have FEMA and one grant that we didn't receive, and we're expecting FEMA funds.
Exactly. We'll give you an update on that.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item 8, public comments. Would anyone from the public like to make comment? Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Ms. Heisel, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Sherry Heisel. I've been wanting to make a comment for a little while and I haven't had a chance to in a previous meeting. I wanted to comment on the false accusations that have been made by previous board members and a certain town citizen that has ran for office several times here. Accusations against our previous town treasurer, our previous lawyer, and our previous attorney, I guess you should say, and the town clerk, basically implying that there was embezzlement and fraud and incompetence going on, which led to a lot of money spent by our town investigating this, even beyond, I'm not even talking, I know we didn't, the FBI and the IRS did their own investigation, and we don't necessarily pay for that, but there were other costs that we did to try to rectify and show that there wasn't that, and it wasn't enough for these people that were accusing this. You know, that was mainly Lori Clark, who happens to be still a town trustee, started this accusations, as well as Ann Howe, who's a town citizen. And Bornstein and Koopman were kind of on this too, and they all accused this, and they stood behind it without any evidence. And they have never apologized yet. And I really think they need to apologize to these employees. They lost their jobs over this. It changed the course of their lives, maybe hopefully for the better, because I hope and I wish them well. But that's not what they wanted to do necessarily at that time in their life. And who wants that accusation on their record? I really wanted to say this out loud, and I stand behind Lori Cronick's letter to the editor that she wrote in the OCN, which was a brilliantly, eloquently written letter of truth. And I wanted to voice that. I'm a concerned citizen. I'm sad that this happened in our town. And I work in the Springs, and believe me, when stuff like this happens, it's always like, oh, what's going on in Monument again? Because it always hits the news. And it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have happened. So I just wanted to say that. And I thank you guys for serving, and I thank everyone that serves. I know it's voluntary, and I know you don't get paid for it, and you put a ton of hours into it. And it just hurts me when other people lose a job over something like this, and it hurts their reputation potentially. I don't know. I mean, I don't talk to them anymore because I don't live here anymore. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone else that would like to make public comment? Okay. Board authorization items. Do we have any board authorization items? Nothing from staff. Do we have anything from board members? Okay. Board of Trustee comments.
I'd like to say something. Oh, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to say I don't know the reason why the home rule presentation was delayed or postponed, but I'm really glad that it was, because I think we need all board members present, either at, on the dais or remotely, to hear that presentation, because that's very important to the future of our town.
Thank you. Trustee LeCond.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Tharnish and his crew. I saw them out round the clock during the course of the storm, even to the point where my doorbell was going off in the middle of the night for some reason. I'm gonna have to make some adjustments to the sensitivity, but your crew did it out. Yeah, ready to go by my house.
Tell them to bring coffee next time.
I'll provide coffee. Okay, I'll provide coffee. No, they did an outstanding job. I know some of the secondary streets people made a point to point out that they didn't get to them at the same time as the primary routes were, but at least in my area in Village Center, I saw your crew working relentlessly, and so please pass on a thank you to the crew that was out there.
Mayor, and I've got a follow-up to that when you're done.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me tell you, Tom and his crew did a great job, and this was an effort led by our police department, the police chief, Erica Romero. She served two positions in this. She was the emergency manager, but also the PIO for the town during this time because we had some employees out. But Tom and Steve and the chief and Commander Hudson and all the sergeants, all the patrol officers, amazing job. We got so many kudos this morning. My phone was ringing off the wall all day talking about how great a job we did and that our staff did. And so I really would like to tell the board and give the board an opportunity to thank the employees. They did an amazing job. Some of these employees have been up here for 36 hours. I know Tom and his crew have. I know the chief has several employees that I talked to today. They've been up here 36 hours working nonstop. And I know our fire department kicked in a huge amount of time up here. The chief and our new fire chief set up the Office of Emergency Management upstairs. And so really I couldn't ask for employees to do more than what they did this weekend.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, thank you to town staff. And if there are no other comments, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.